All right, I'm here with Ope. This is what the front of Ope looks like. And this is Ope's roadmap to success. So Ope's been in the house for about about 2.5 months. The Guardians have done a great job. He had some skin irritations and stuff that they've gotten kind of worked out. Basically, a lot of what we worked on is just kind of some basics. Yes. Nice, like marking good behaviors. So a marker word is a word that we use when the dog does the thing that we want. Nice. So when he got to me, I said the word nice to let him know that's what I wanted, and then I gave him a reinforcer, which could be a pet or a treat. Now you see I have this bag of, this little bundle of treats here, and I've got his attention. Now he's very nice. This is what's called capturing. So I didn't ask him for the sit, but when he did sit down, I said the word nice, and then I gave him a treat within 2 seconds. Remember, you have 2 seconds to correct or reward a dog for them to have the ability to make the connection. And it has to be repeated a number of times in a row before they find that the light bulb comes on. So yes, and I'm keeping your attention here with this, we call this crack. This is Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver. It comes in a big bundle. We call it crack because dogs fiend for it, and he really likes it. It's beef, yes. All right, so we started off by talking about exercise. Being in an apartment, he doesn't get as much exercise like in a yard as we'd like. So we just got done talking about taking him on walks. Dogs burn more energy on a walk by sniffing than they do from walking. So when you're on a walk, we'd like to encourage him sniffing. Now, it's wintertime, the snow is finally melted. When there's snow, it's hard for them to sniff much because the ground's frozen, it's covered in snow and ice. One of the things we can do to help dogs get in the habit of sniffing is to go along the walk ahead of time and take a little bit of finely shredded cheese and sprinkle a little bit in the grass. Don't put it in one clump, sprinkle over it maybe about a foot, and not a ton. And then lead him to that, and then go home, grab and then lead him to that area, and then he gets that. Next time you're walking by that same area on a walk, he's going to go investigate that area looking for that cheese. So maybe you do this the next walk, you put the cheese in a different place on the walk. And so after a while, after a week or so, you have 10 or 12 places where he's gotten a big plethora of cheese, and he's out on the walk sniffing, looking for that cheese. That sniffing is going to make him less interested or less aware of other dogs or people in the neighborhood. And he's also going to be sniffing, which is draining of energy. It's also confidence building and comforting for a dog. And it makes the walks more efficient. I thought he was going to sit. So he's going to in a sec. Nice. I forgot to mention this when we were doing the session, but for potty training. So because of his anatomy, you can kind of see his the end of his digestive tract, let's just call it that. And so when you see that puckering and you know he's about to do his bowel movement, that would be when you can assign your command word, your marker word. You don't, or not your command cue, not your marker word. A marker word is to indicate the dog did what you want as a placeholder. If we can reliably predict the dog's going to do the behavior, then we would say the word business is the word that I use for potty. So as soon as I see the dogs kind of sniffing and going figure eights, and I see the rear end of the digestive tract puckering a little bit, I say business, then my dog squats, does his business, then I give him a treat afterwards. And now we've established a command cue, so we say business, because right now we can't just open the door and let him outside. So it is a labor of production, so I'm sure, I don't know if this has happened to Guardians yet, but there are probably times where he indicates he wants to go outside, you take him outside, he doesn't do any business, we get frustrated with him, well, he just wanted to go outside. So we want to separate go outside with business or potty or whatever the word is, so now we can query him if he actually does want to go. One thing I didn't go over, if you guys would like to, you can teach him to ring a bell to say, I need to go out and potty. Now, the way you would do that is you would have the bell, and don't have it hanging by your door ever. Nice. And don't have it out at first. So what you want to do is you're taking him outside. As soon as you see the rear end kind of indicate that he's got to start to pee or poop, you jingle the bell a little bit in a very gentle way. And then he does his business. Don't just jingle a little bit before or right as he starts, then clamp it. And then as soon as he gets done, say nice and give him that treat. After a while, he starts to associate that. I hear that jingle every time I'm about to have a bowel movement. So after doing this for about a week, and when you jingle it like ding, 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 don't go brrr, because that's not the sound he's going to make. You'll actually probably end up getting jingle bells. They're hard to find any bells besides jingle bells. Then what you can do is take a push pin and put it on the wall somewhere or hang it from the cabinet or wherever. And then before you take him outside, you go and ring that, and then you go to the door, take him outside, and do your business. But you want to do it for about a week outside, taking it with you. And the only time he hears it, so when you're walking outside, make sure you're holding it stiff so that it's not making a clanging sound as you're walking out there. The only time he hears it is right before he starts to pee or poop, and then you clamp it, and then he gets a treat afterwards. But it's nice if you live in an apartment because the dog can actually say, I want to go outside and potty, rather than just, I want to go outside and burn some energy. Now, burning energy, I think, is a big part of some of his nuisance behaviors that his guardians are having. So I went over some creative forms of exercise. I dropped him off a lick mat. Licking also releases endorphins. So if you do ever have a guest or somebody that he's unsure about, giving him something where he can chew on or lick is great because it releases the endorphins into the brain and it's creating a positive association. And if you have somebody comes over and he's a little bit leery of him, they should ignore him. Don't look at him, don't try to pet him, don't try to offer him treats, just ignore him. And if he comes over to them, they should just continue to ignore him. So a lot of dogs, when they're aloof, they'll keep their distance and then, you're not interested in me? Well, now I'm confident enough to come over and investigate you, but then if I reach for him, that might cause him to get unsettled and move away. So let him come over. The dog should be by sniffing. That's how they should encounter the world. Now, before you have guests coming over, exercising, going to the doggy stairmaster on the stairs like we talked about, taking him for a sniff walk, having him work for his food by getting him some treat dispensing toys or a snuffle mat. Scent games is another nice thing that you can do. Doing some basic training like we just got done doing in your bedroom, which we'll talk about here in a sec. Well, we'll talk about it now. So basically he is kind of all over the place in the bed. So to condition him to go in the middle of the bed, what I like the guardians to do is grab it was probably about 10 up downs, or probably about 15 up downs on the bed, and he was wiped out. So grab about 15 pieces of kibble about 10 or 15 minutes before you're going to feed him, or before guests are going to come over. Go in, or anytime you want to enter, the 9 o'clock time when he gets the witching hour, when he gets all that energy. So go into your bedroom, invite him up, and so show him a treat, and tap where you want him to be. And at first when he gets up there, we just say nice and give him the treat. And then then call him back down on the floor, tap it again, nice, and maybe do that 1 or 2 times. But after a while, now we're going to invite him up, and then when he gets up, take the treat, if this is his head, touch his nose with the treat, and then go and arc over his head. As his head goes up, his butt will go down. As soon as his butt hits the ground, hits the bed, say nice and pop that treat in his mouth. And then invite him back off, and then eventually he should just start sitting. And once he's consistently sitting on his own as soon as he gets on the bed, and make sure he's in that middle spot that we were at. Then when he gets in a sit, touch his nose with the treat and then lure him down. And if you lure it longer than 2 inches away and he stops tracking it, bring it back to his nose. Keep it within 1 inch or 2 of his nose. And lure him all the way down. As soon as he lays down in a down position, that's the word I use is crash, say nice and then pop him that treat in. And eventually he'll start jumping up in the bed and laying down, and you're giving the treat. And once you get to that point, then you're ready to assign the command cue of, I believe, Tennessee. So is that what we're saying?
Nashville,
excuse me. I knew it was in Tennessee. But so basically we say Nashville and then pat the bed, and then he jumps up and lays down. We say nice and give him that treat. Now, once we get to that point, we say Nashville, he jumps up, 1 second, and then I give him the treat. And then after we do that a couple times, then invite him up. Nashville, he jumps up and he lays down. Now wait 2 seconds before I say nice and give him that treat. And work your way up to like 15 or 20 seconds. So now he's not only just getting up there, I'm practicing staying here. So you might have like each time he gets up there 5 or 10 reps before you add an extra second, or before you go from a sit to a down or whatever it is. And if he has trouble with it, he's already asleep. If he has trouble with it, always back up to a previous level of success and practice there a couple times, and then try to go a little bit further. For practicing for dog training in general, you don't really want to train a dog for longer than about 3 minutes maximum. You want to always end on a positive. Last repetition is what they're going to remember the most prominently. So if you get frustrated when you're doing it, he's like, I don't want to do this bed thing. You got mad when we did it last time. Well, maybe I just pushed too much and he got too tired. He couldn't jump up in the bed, and I got frustrated when he got in the bed. He doesn't want to do it again. That's why it's important to always end on a good one. Let me see. The doggy stairmaster, or just walking up and down the stairs, would be a great way to do it. Unfortunately, in video, you can't smell the wonderful smell that he's giving off. So if your dog is gassy, that also means often means their dog food is not agreeing with them. So I gave the guardians a card for the green spot. I'd like them to talk to Suki at the green spot, ask for some samples. They'll give you a bunch of different samples. But what I would imagine Suki will tell you is to pick a particular type of protein. Duck or chicken, well, not chicken or beef or whatever it is, kangaroo meat from Signature, and then try and see how he does it for a couple days. If he's not gassy, then you know that protein and that formula works with him. And then you can and you want to find a type of food where there's different flavors. So each time you get a new bag, it's the same company, but a different flavor. That way it gives him a little bit of variety. After a while, he'll lose interest if it's the same flavor each time. Let me see. The lick mat, and I would also get the Omega Paw treat ball is one of my favorite ones to feed out of, and sometimes you have to roll those a little bit for him the first couple times, but then eventually he'll be like a little soccer player, nudges a little bit, piece of the kibble come up, he nudges a little bit more, and that's another nice thing that you can pull out when you have guests. That gives him something to do. Instead of jumping up on the guest, because the guest's not giving me treats, but the Omega Paw treat ball is, and he's nudging the sucker all around the place. So being proactive, the guardians might want to start a exercise journal. Just get a new piece of paper each day, write the day at the top, write down the time, every time you feed him, every time he gets exercise, every time he does something that you don't want him to do behaviorally. And then at the end of the day, give a letter grade A through F. And then the next day, maybe if you did 10 up downs onto the bed, maybe the next day let's try 12, let's try 15, or let's try 15 twice a day or 3 times a day or whatever it is. The idea is to keep it for a week and keep on varying the amounts of exercise and stimulation he gets until we get like, wow, that was an A+ behavior day. Now we can look at the pattern. How long is it between the exercise sessions that he needs? How long after meals? How long after naps and things along those lines? And then you start to recognize, and you can also put the bowel movements on there as well so you can kind of identify that window of when he's going to need to go potty number 2. So now we can actually incorporate it into our day-to-day life and our routine. The guardians here, one of them works at home, and he has the sort of job where he needs to be not bothered. And so if we exercise the dog a little bit before then, and then we have like an Omega Paw treat ball full of food ready to go, or a kneecap, or a bully stick, or or a lick mat full of, or a Kong. So now when the dog starts getting riled up, we've already exercised him first. That should be good for about 45 minutes to an hour. But then in the middle, if he doesn't, we throw that lick mat down. And now we've got a plan B that keeps him occupied while the guardian could go about finishing his job without being disturbed by the dog. Being proactive in terms of your dog's exercise and mental stimulation is something that takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, man, it makes a huge difference, and I think it's going to make a big difference for Ope. We also talked about the importance of rules and structure. A lot of us kind of don't really communicate to the dog what it can do to make us happy or to contribute to our group. So for dogs, good attention and bad attention is pretty much the same thing. And not disagreeing with the dog is the same thing as saying I agree with it. So if Ope comes up and jumps up on me, now this is the one time where I would kind of freeze because he jumps up on me, he wants some attention from me. So if I don't do anything, technically that's saying I don't mind this, but I'm also pretty boring. And when he jumps up on me, he wants some entertainment. So if I become the most boring thing ever when he jumps up on me, but as soon as he jumps down, his other guardian calls him over and asks him to do some spins and some downs, some other things, and he gets some treats, well, then he realizes those are behaviors that get attention. Jumping up on humans make them really lame. And so after a while, the dog will start to offer those particular behaviors, and that's why we went over capturing. Capturing is basically using a marker word anytime the dog offers you a behavior that you want on its own without any influence for us. So if I'm sitting here watching TV and Ope walks up to me, I would say, nice, and pet him. Ope sits down, nice. As soon as the butt hits the ground, I pet him. Lays down, same thing. When he's peeing or pooping, you say the same thing. If he goes to his dog bed, grabs a particular toy, whatever it is, any activity that he does on a regular basis, if you get in a habit of marking it and then giving affection immediately afterwards, he's going to start doing that more and more often. Right now, he jumps up on guests, and the guardians calls him away because nobody wants their dog to jump up on a guest. Also, when the guardians come home, he's very excited, and they pet him. So he's in a habit, when people come through that door, the appropriate thing for me to do as Ope the dog is go jump up on them, and they will reward me for doing so. Well, now when the guardians come in, they're just going to ignore Ope. And he's all excited. We just kind of go about our business. He jumps up, we freeze and become boring. He's like, man, come on, I've been waiting for you for 4 hours. God, you're lame. I'm going to go grab a toy. Then you go back, continuing your business. And when he's calm, then you reach over to pet him. And if he starts wiggling, gets excited, you pull your arm back and just go back to doing what you're doing. We're not punishing him. We're just saying when you're calm, you're very attractive to us. We want to pet you. When you get excited, we're just on to other things. It doesn't bother us, but we're not going to cater to you. We're not going to ask for anything for you. And so after a while, he's going to do the thing that gets him the attention that he wants. Let me see. We also want to try to prevent him from doing things that we don't want or things that were going to cause us to say no, Ope, no. So I went over the positive interrupter, which is making a kissing sound. Well, I'm probably going to interrupt him, but yep, woke him right on up. And so that's a kissing sound. You can also go beep, 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 beep. Now the higher pitch is going to be more important. One of the guardians was doing it. She wasn't using quite as high a pitch, and she got a little bit of a response, but you're going to find you get a better response with that higher pitch. Now the higher pitch is going to make him more excited, so kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Nice. So that's capturing right there. I didn't ask him to come to me. I didn't give him a treat, but when he did, I gave him some pets. Now we also talked about petting with a purpose. So if he comes up and paws at me, he's saying, hey, I'm bored, or I want some attention from you, David. So if he tells me what to do and I pet him, then I'm telling him, yes, you have dominion over me. You get to tell me what to do, and I listen. Well, and then after a while, he's like, well, you're my toy servant. You're here to give me treats. You're here to do all this stuff for me. Nice. So instead, when he paws at you, I want the guardians instead to sit. Nice. So I tell him to sit. Now I'm using this as a lure, making it look like my hand has a treat in it. And then if he sits within 2 seconds, then I say nice, and then I pet him as much or as little as I want. And for petting him, the best place to pet him is anywhere in this oval, under his chin, on his chest, or on his 2 shoulders. He doesn't have a big problem with it, but a lot of dogs don't like having people reach over their head. Anything that other people are going to do, I would try to have guests reach underneath and pet him underneath. Good, proud, confident dogs have their nose up in the air. I want to feel good about doing the things that we want them to do. So for petting with a purpose, if he comes and paws at me, I'm going to give him a counter order, tell him to either sit or to lie down. If he's already sitting, he paws at me, I tell him to sit over here or over here. He has to do something to change his state. Nice. And so if he does it within that 2-second window, then I mark it and I pet him. If he doesn't do it within that 2-second window, I just show him I have other things that I could be doing. Playing hard to get works great when it comes to dog training. He realizes that I'm having a great time watching TV or doing a crossword puzzle, and he's the one SOL. And after a while, he'll come start sitting in front of you and then resitting and resitting and resitting, because that seems to be the thing you want, because every time I paw at you, you tell me to sit or to lie down. Make sure you do recognize it, otherwise you will go back to the pawing at you. Even if you want to pet him, still tell him to sit or lie down. That's a nice way to create that healthy leader-follower dynamic. So he's like, I have to ask them when I want something from him, rather than them being here to service me or pet me or give me their toys or whatever the case may be. I like to use the watchword of paycheck if I suspect someone's petting without a purpose. So somebody comes in the room and sees I'm petting Ope while he's standing up. They say paycheck. Even if I did it right, I stop petting. Say, Ope, sit. If he sits in that 2-second window, I pet him under his chin. I'd say nice and pet him on his chin. Tell the person, I asked him to sit, but when he heard the car keys, he stood up, and I continued petting him. But thank you, because I do forget to pet without a purpose. Celebrating, which is the watchword that we use for capturing, is I say celebrate. That means you just missed an opportunity to pet your dog. So if Ope is right here and I'm not paying attention, somebody says celebrate, I would just say nice and start petting him. Don't even think about it, and you don't need to necessarily know what it is. Your partner saw it for you. After a while, you'll get in habit. In the corner of your eye, Ope will walk up and you'll be like, nice, while you continue watching TV or playing video games or whatever that it is. I have that same video game. Old school video games at this point. But basically, the more we reward him for the things that we want, the more he's going to offer those particular behaviors for us. And after a while, he'll start sitting and laying down, going to his dog bed, going to the Nashville and all the rest of that fun stuff. We also talked about Premacks. Premacks are basically means that a less desirable behavior earns me a more desirable behavior. So if he's in the kennel, go to the door and tell him to sit. If he sits, then I reach and open the door and let him out. If he doesn't sit, sit down on the couch. Now, if you know that he's got to go to the bathroom or something like that, don't do it at that point. But if you just know he wants to get out and he's all excited, again, if we let him out with that excitement is not necessarily the same thing as happiness. So if I let him out of the kennel, he's excited, that's what he's going to do, is run around the house. So as long as I'm not keeping him there for too long, I come in and I tell him to sit. He doesn't sit. I'm just going to sit down on the couch right there, pull out my phone, and if he's protesting, I'm just going to ignore. Don't even look at him. Why didn't you sit down? I would have let you out. He doesn't understand any of that stuff. As soon as he gets calm, then get up and go over and snap that door open. Eventually, you can start making it longer and longer. We're going to have Claire come back and work on the relaxation protocol to teach him how to stay calm in the dog in his kennel with the door open when we're preparing food or eating food or doing jumping jacks or other silly things. But it's something that will help him with that. But in the meantime, using those Premacks, have him sit every time you cross a corner outside. Every time you open a door from your apartment to the door to the stairs, the door to the elevator, getting out of the elevator. The more you make him sit, it just gets in the habit of doing it. Sit, like I mentioned off camera, if a dog won't sit or lay down and you know he knows how to do it, it either means he's too stimulated or he's uncomfortable in the situation. So if you want to meet somebody, you tell him to sit and he can't sit, but he's not excited, he's saying, I'm uncomfortable with that person. So that's why, hey, he's having an off day, and just walk on by. A lot of people forget that dogs give consent as well. If I want to reach and pet a dog, if this is the dog's nose, what I do is I stop here. If the dog leans forward and touches my hand, he's saying, yeah, I'm interested in you petting me. But if I reach out like this and he doesn't do that and I reach and pet him anyways, or if he turns his head, lowers his head, backs away, or turns away, he's saying, I don't want to meet this person. And we just think petting is a good thing, so it's okay for me to pet your dog anyways. This is where a lot of dogs start biting and nipping because they say, no, I'm not interested. The person petted me anyways. And so we don't want that to happen. The guardians didn't say anything specifically about that, but I go over consent with a lot of people because a lot of people don't realize it. Some people come up and, well, actually, I guess the guardians did say occasionally there are people that he just doesn't want to interact with or he doesn't have a good vibe with. What I would do is take note of any sort of characteristics. Were they wearing a dress? Do they have a beard? Were they tall? Were they skinny? Were they moving fast? Sometimes there's a like characteristics we can actually help counter condition the dog. So when he sees people with a skirt, that means that he's going to get a treat instead of being uncomfortable. Usually it just means they weren't exposed to it when they were a puppy. Let me see, other rules. I would not allow him in the kitchen when we're preparing food. I wouldn't let him be within about 7 feet of the humans when we're eating. I would have the humans eat something a little bit before that they feed him. Just 5 bites of a chip or a cracker will work. The video above of the bucket game, I didn't, a lot of times the videos I do this transformation, I wasn't able to do it here because it would have taken us 25 minutes. But I promise you, eventually you'll get to the point where you move it 5 times that level and keep going down, and he'll stay seated, and then you give him permission to come over and eat his food. And that's a nice way for him to practice a little bit of self-control every time you feed him. Same thing with the door and everything else. I'm trying to think what else. Anything else you guys want me to go over?
Gosh, no, I don't think so.
that was everything, yeah.
It's like I've done this before. All right, come here, buddy. Yeah, why don't we come over here and let's show everybody how handsome you are. Yes. Well, actually, your word is nice, isn't it? Sit. Nice. Well, this is my buddy Ope, and this is Ope's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.